that I have with people, just kind of like we're just chatting, and flowing, and then the conversation goes where it goes, and
Yeah,
that's when all the really good stuff comes out.
Cool.
Am I loud enough? Oh, all right. Let's see. Cool.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
I'm gonna send you this. This is where we are. I went to YouTube because Facebook was having an issue. So
Very cool.
here's the link. If you want to share that guy,
Dope.
feel free. And do this.
To mute the side. There was a way I can like open the chat bubble. Oh, here you go. Pop up. Cool. Dope.
All right. Let's pop this thing out. Sweet. All right. How's it going, everyone? This is Mario and Julian in totally different places today. Julian, where you at?
You're in Montreal, Canada, man.
Man.
Still cold.
Still cold.
Still cold.
Still cold over there.
Still cold. I mean, it's warming up, but yeah.
I'm literally, it's 6:17 in the morning for me, and I'm literally sweating already.
I hate you.
It's hot. It's hot.
I hate you, man.
So, just wanted to jump on. Julian and I have known each other for a little while, and we've had some really cool conversations about branding and Instagram and marketing and strategy, and like pretty much everything that we talk about usually on the daily for anybody that's following me or that I talk to, anybody like as far as like branding and marketing and strategy. And Julian has some really awesome just views on all that stuff. And so I wanted to get into some of that. But lately we've been talking about personal marketing and our like kind of like social media presences and stuff like that. Julian, what's your Instagram now? You're like at
Juju.branding.
Juju.branding is but like how many people is following that right now?
26.9K.
Okay, so when Julian and I like kind of started really running hard at Instagram, it was kind of around the same time, and and Julian just kind of like just took off, and his Instagram just like went nuts at one point, because he obviously brings tons of value as far as like branding and design and marketing, chatting, and information. And so people were just latching onto that. But what happened, like, as far as like you were going hard for a while. I mean, we all were. Like, there was about 5 of us that were just kind of attacking Instagram for a good minute.
What was like
what happened? Yeah, what was the big like shift? Well, talk about two things. What was the big shift to start, and what was the big shift to like kind of like stop as abruptly as you did?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I guess for me, the shift essentially was when I decided to change my kind of overall approach to it. Whereas before I was, just kind of reading stuff, or I'd watch a video or two and I'd kind of repurpose that video or like that article or that book. I'd kind of for lack of a better term or word, I was like regurgitating what was in my head, rather than trying to think about the experiences and how I've used those, tactics or whatever, and kind of relate them to an experience that I've had. And I think that's when I started seeing the engagement just started like booming when I would talk about stuff that I've done, as opposed to, like how to do this, but then there's never like that attachment to an experience that you've had, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was the turning point. So obviously it's a lot harder to do that because you have to like dig a little deeper and like think, okay, well, have I done something like this? Has it worked for me? Has it not worked for me? Um, so that was kind of the turning point for me for sure, was when I started doing stuff like that. And then also a little bit of going a little bit against the grain. um I was, maybe not so scared too much as like voicing my opinion. So yeah, maybe a little rebellious, you can say, somewhat. That kind of sparked a lot of attention too.
Yeah.
So that definitely was a big turning point for me.
So as far as like being that kind of rebellious strain, like, there's everybody has like a little bit of like rebellion in them, right? Because
Mhm.
anytime you tell anybody it's like, don't do that, that's the first thing you want to do, right? Doesn't matter what it is. Even if you really don't want to do that, there's just something inside you that kind of like wants to kick against the grain and say, don't tell me what to do, I'm going to do what I want. um, as far as like content and stuff like that, what do you feel was something that was in that vein where you're like, you know what, people are telling me not to do this, I'm going to do this anyway because this is what I'm feeling, or this is what's kind of like true to me.
I think a lot of people are scared to voice their own opinions, especially on social media. Um, I think the fear of having people look at you different, or the fear of not being accepted, it's human nature, I think, right? Like there's always that fear of not being part of the crew.
Yeah.
And I think that the world is so big and there's so many different perspectives. Um, I don't know. I had that fear as well, where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna stick like with the grain, even though I see things differently, or I view things differently. I'm sure a ton of people, view things differently as well. I mean, obviously they align with what I say. Some of them do, not everyone, obviously. But yeah, I think that's what it is. It's more of like a fear that just people are scared to just voice their own opinion. And I think if people start voicing their own opinion, they'll also grow a lot faster, and they'll
Yeah.
learn a lot more about themselves, as opposed to, having someone else's voice in the back of their head and it's not really them, but they're like, you know what, this guy's doing it and he's successful, I should probably keep doing what he's doing, or in that kind of notion. So yeah, I don't know, that's for me, that's what it was. It was just, you know what, I'm gonna voice what I have to say. Sometimes it may not be right, and in a month from now I'll have a different perspective,
Yeah.
but in this moment this is what I believe, and that's it, I'm gonna voice it. It's social
Well,
media after all. I mean, it's not like everyone has like, oh my god, it's social media, it's this huge thing, like, I don't know, I used to think that way too, and now it's like, you know what, it's just social media, let's just have fun, let's be open, be free, talk about what you want to talk about, and that's it. As long as you're not vicious and evil and stuff, it's all good, man.
yeah, there was that point, I think we were all kind of just racing to do probably as many carousels as we could every day. and and there was that like fear of posting the right thing,
Mm,
posting enough, showing up every day, every moment, answering everything. Like it was like for a while, like I had to make that my full-time job, right? Because it's
yeah.
just like you're spending so much time creating content, thinking content up, absorbing content, replying to comments and people, and building your network, right? At you almost build into your own um, social media structure the fear to keep going, right? And then once you get 1,000 people following you or whatever, you really start worrying about like what you're saying. Like it really becomes this thing where you're just like freaking out because you're like, well, what if I say the wrong thing? And you forget that before, everything that you said was wrong because you didn't know what you were saying. You're just like, oh, I'm going to try this and I'm going to try that. And the experimentation was fun in the beginning, but then it got so real because 1,000 turns into, for you, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. When those numbers starts racking up, like what was your mentality as far as like creating content and like with the growth? Was it, did you care? Was it something that you were trying to do, or was it a byproduct of kind of what you were talking about, like voicing your opinion and being true to yourself?
um so I think my approach was very different from a lot of people, even still now on social media or Instagram particularly, where to them consistency means every day, or, 5 days a week or whatever. To me, consistency was, if I'm going to pick to post, let's say once a week or twice a week, I'm going to be consistent in those 2 days. So that for me was my consistency. And I think that people have this, it's almost like they're forced to do this whole like 5 day, 6 day posts, or rather a post per day for 6 days or whatever, or 7 days. And I think it's very unrealistic for a lot of people, especially at the beginning. And like you and myself, I tried it for a little bit and I burnt out like real fast.
Yeah.
It was just between that and doing client work, I couldn't do it. Even though I tried my best to do it. And I quit. I remember I quit Instagram right after trying that. I said, nope, not doing this anymore. This is too much. Like a post a day. And at the time it was like new for us, for me anyway. And to do a carousel took me a long time to do. Like it wasn't just like an hour thing, So yeah, I quit. And then a month and a half later, I came back and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try again, but I'm going to start real small. Like I'm going to make a commitment to myself and I'm going to just post once a week and that's it. And that was my consistency. It was once a week. Then I bumped it to like 2 posts a week. And the growth was going well. And then I said, okay, I'll do, I think I did 3 at one point, and that was like the max I did. And the growth still like was jumping up really fast. And so I even made a post about it. Like, I think I forget when, but I made a post and it was like, like, don't let other people tell you what your consistency is. Like for me, it worked just fine to grow, at the rate that I'm growing and with my own consistency. So I think there's a bit of that misconception where it's like, you have to post every day to get that attention. And although I do agree with that, for like the attention point of view, like if you're trying to build the momentum, I think that is a good like strategy. It's a very good tactic to post every single day. But then it does get harder and harder to do. So for me, I think once I reached, I can't remember the number now, but let's say like it was like maybe 8K or something, then I just like slowed it down completely. And I just went like, that's when I gave up. I think I gave up around 8K. I quit Instagram and then I came back and I'm like, you know what, I'll do this again at a slower pace. Yeah, I mean, it worked for me. And also there's another thing where I feel like people get bored of content. And I've been voiced this so much where it's like, oh, I miss your content. I miss your content. And I think that's a factor that a lot of people are missing out on, where it's like, I would even go to the point where if you have a good audience, like build quality content as opposed to like a bunch of like smaller ones that aren't as high quality. I would focus on the quality. I don't know. That's my mentality. What do you think?
I mean, I completely agree with you. What I was going to ask was, but you answered it a little bit, as far as like your growth rate, right? And so like after that month and a half you took off and you came back, like when your first post, like what was the engagement on that? Was it like nothing, or was it like everybody was like so thirsty to kind of look at your content again?
I mean, I don't
Kind of
remember
talking about like
exactly.
kind of talking about like building that. I think what you're talking about just right now was like building that desire for your content again, right? Like making them miss you, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like now, it's kind of the same concept where I don't really post much, right? I'm posting, like I posted one yesterday, and before that, I posted it March 31st. So that was 21 days ago or 20 days ago.
Okay.
And the reach and the engagement is just as good as the ones that I've posted prior. Like it still has really, really good engagement. So I think that notion that if you don't post for so long, that Instagram kind of puts you in like this doghouse.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, it's not putting me in a doghouse. So I don't know. I'm not like an Instagram. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm an Instagram wizard, but
we know a few of those guys.
Yeah, we know a few of those guys, and they're definitely wizards at them. So I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, the engagement's good. I can't complain. I mean, I don't know. I think the quality is more important than the quantity. It's to some point. I think there's like a threshold where it's like, okay, I have the attention now. I need to nurture my current audience. And I think that's where people forget to do, is that they forget about the current audience that they have, and they just like, okay, let's just bombard just to get more eyes on me, and get more followers and more followers. And I think that might be, I don't know, it's not the approach I want to take. So yeah.
Well, and I've had some conversations with some other guys that we know, some friends of ours, like, and I'm just going to call him out because he's very open about like the same exact thing, the whole quality versus quantity thing, is John Bresciani out of Australia, right? It's like he went, his Instagram went bananas too, like, and he didn't even, he was like, and he was over it already, and he was in the 20s or whatever. He's like, I'm over it. And so he's like, screw this, I'm literally just gonna post what I want to post. And I was on a call with him a few weeks ago, and he's like, I miss the stuff that I miss about our profession. Like, I miss why I started becoming a designer. And I was like, man, it's been so long since I've actually just thought about like geeking out over like type and like, ligatures, and like, like he's a total like font type nerd, right? And I love it because that's kind of like, there's a little bit of that inside all of us, that we're kind of that we're drawn to design in the first place because of fonts and type and the beauty of gridding and all this stuff. And so I know that he was just like, screw, I'm gonna post what I want when I want to, and I don't care. I don't care what anybody says. And it's stuff. And so now, then he's like, he totally went all in like create. Now he's like, his stuff is like just this body of like beautiful posters, and like, and he's just doing whatever he wants to do. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like what you said quality and quantity, like in the beginning is one way, right? And we've heard this over and over again. In the beginning is one way. When do you think it's okay, or I don't want to say okay, like when do you think that shifting over to quality rather than quantity, it's almost exactly the reverse, right? Like 21 days ago you posted, so your post, you have and we're going to talk about your most current post in a little bit as far as LinkedIn, but quality, like you're putting a little bit more effort, a little bit more thought, a little bit more almost research, kind of day-to-day research into your post now, and you're only doing it every 3 weeks, right? Or you only did it, the last 3 weeks. What has changed as far as for you in the shareability or wanting to share your work now?
Yeah, I think, like, I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory of like why I started Instagram, right? And I think a lot of us are in the same boat. We started Instagram to develop some sort of social value so that we gain more clients.
Yeah.
Right. Like for myself, that was the initial kind of approach I had, right? And I started noticing, even with the growth, that Instagram is not the best for myself. Again, not the best source of getting leads, at least not quality leads that I align with. Unfortunately, there are some people that I have gotten leads from Instagram, and they've been great. But for the most part, there's other platforms that I think are doing my business more justice than Instagram is.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I kind of said, you know what, I'm spending a lot of time on Instagram. Like I was spending every waking moment that I had free that wasn't client work, it was on Instagram, right? To try and build this like momentum and social value so that I can gain more clients. Now I use it more as like a community based / outlet for me to get inspired or talk to people like you, and like, meet cool people. And I kind of just want to give back to the community. And I use it more of like a way to, like, now with my posts, I like you said, I just geek out on stuff. Like I just like trying to like make every post like nice with like poster and like typography and like using like textures. I just use it as like an outlet for myself to express. Now it's more like an expressing tool for myself, as opposed to like a way to track clients. And I thought, you know what, instead of just posting my work, I'll express myself through whether it's experience that I had or teaching or whatever it may be. I'll do it in that fashion, as opposed to, instead of what I used to do was like, try and teach people stuff that I've done through like really fast, absorb like this, post, like just really fast, like without much thought into it. Now it's more, let's create something that nice to look at, and I could actually express myself, and also, you know, practice my craft. Like that's pretty much what it comes down to, just practicing and having fun with it. Whereas opposed before, I don't think I was having so much fun. I was having more fun sparking conversations with people as opposed to
Yeah.
creating content. So now I'm having like it's a nice balance where I'm having fun creating content, even if it's, you know, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. It's enjoyable for me, and I think that's what matters most, is just the fact that I can get on the platform and be happy, as opposed to get on the platform and be like, okay, I gotta spend like 2 hours now and like do this. Like now I enjoy talking to people, and I enjoy, just because of what I've created, I enjoy it. So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of for the threshold part. Like when is it okay to start thinking about the quality? I don't know. I think it's like maybe like the feeling you have. I don't know. Like I can't say at 5,000 you should start thinking about the quality. You know, like it's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. I think
Tough.
it's so probably relative to everybody,
Yeah.
but I think there are certain people where their quality is just their post, right? It's like the ideas for their post, and like their whole thing is Instagram growth, um, or a race to like a higher number, and they want to be like Instagram influencers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in the beginning, I think that was something that I thought that's what I was wanting, right? I want to say hi to Cam. Cam's online. Cam Schreiner. He's
Oh,
in your
what up,
neck.
Cam?
He's in your neck of the woods, kind of. He's over
Yes,
there
I
in
know
Vancouver,
Cam.
right? Um, so it's I think it depends on the person and why they're doing what they're doing and what they're doing, right? So like we're designers at the core of who we are. Um, so I think it's always been like in us to create beautiful things, because that's what we started doing this. We wanted to design beautiful things, right? And and so like when you're racing to create 1,000 carousels and trying to like gain a following, and then you kind of hit it for me the same way. Like I was having way more fun with the conversations I was having with people through the comments, and ended up being like I was excited to do my carousels because of the conversations that might happen, right? So it wasn't even the carousel I was excited about. Like I would post and be like, all right, cool, let me talk to who's gonna react to this, right? Because I just I not that I didn't care. I did care about the content that I was putting out, and it did mean something to me, but it just meant something to me. I was more curious to see if it was meaning anything to anyone else. And so that was the conversation I wanted to start having. But in the midst of it, you're drowning in carousel creation, you're drowning in community engagement, and what you what the reason you started any of this is like nowhere to be found, because like the whole idea of the love of the craft, right? And we've talked about this a few times. Like,
Mm-hmm.
man, I it's been so long since I've just kind of like geeked out on like John kind of he I think both of you guys maybe had like challenged me to like just open Illustrator and just stare at it and just like make something. I'm like, I don't know. It's like it's been so long since I just like kind of like let my imagination create something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like I'm better like if I'm drawing, like I'll just start kind of going nuts, and then I'll let that kind of like take my imagination wherever it wants to go. But like the whole reason for even wanting to share anything was because I wanted to share the beautiful stuff that I can do, you know, like or the gift of design that I have. I wanted to share that because I love it. Um, but then it just became about content, and it became about like carousels, and became about everything else. Um, and I think that's why like when this whole COVID lockdown happened, I was like, screw it all. I'm gonna have like happy hours with people. Just gonna make random drinks. I'm gonna talk to people and do more of this stuff, because it was way more interesting to me. I was like, oh, I'd rather have a conversation with somebody for an hour than spend 2 hours making a carousel, and like then I just throw it out there. I'd rather have this kind of interaction, and you're gonna hear my kids going crazy. um I don't think I've done a video yet where my son is not screaming.
Yeah,
in some...
I've heard a few, and I'm like, ah, there it is.
So anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about, actually, Cam has a question. Do you think the design community has become closer over the last couple of years? How do you see things evolving in the next couple?
I guess the question is specific to Instagram. That's another thing.
I would say so, yeah, because that is another thing. The
Yeah, that is
Instagram
another thing.
community is very specific, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot of communities out there, and it's not just Instagram. I think there's a lot of really, really good designers that don't even have Instagram or use it as like personal and aren't even in our community. Yeah. So surprise, like, yeah. So a lot of people are stuck in Instagram, where I think there's a lot of platforms out there that have some really, really, really dope designers that everyone could learn from.
Yeah,
for sure. And again, nothing against Instagram. I love Instagram. I just think that for some reason, Instagram is like, you get so sucked into it, it's crazy.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a time suck for me. Like, if I get on Instagram and I don't have a point, I'm there for whenever.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's answer this question.
Yeah, like, I can only speak to, like, I really only like dove into Instagram design community, like literally for me, I only did that last year, because I just, Instagram wasn't important to me and my job and everything. I didn't really care about it. But then I got, we were in the Future Pro group together, and Chris threw out a, kind of a gauntlet. He's like, hey, I'm going to do this. Let's try it. And that's when we all just started creating all this crazy content. And I was like, okay, this is a goal. This is a point. I want to increase my following. And I think at the point I had like 2,000 people, but it was a personal account. I had to transition that. So I did a whole bunch of mess to do that. But like, I deleted all of my followers down to like less than 1,000, and then started there and started producing Instagram carousel content and stuff like that.
I remember.
And then I think that from that point, as far as like the design community, like that's when I started discovering like that there was a huge, like really strong design community with amazing designers and really intelligent people all over the world. And I think we're in some kind of like a couple like private chats, with a couple, like with a few like just amazing people that everybody has like 30,000+ followers in these groups. And we're just chatting away and having fun. And I think one of our groups, like, we're purposefully not talking about design. We're like talking about food and like drinks and like games and stuff, because I think the Instagram design community has connected on a deeper, they've kind of like transcended that design relationship, and they've gone deeper into like actual friendships across the world, which is super fun. So I think the design community is really like probably an amazing, I can't speak to like the LinkedIn design community so much, but I can imagine it's different, right? There are, I see similar faces, but it's different. And I want to transition over to LinkedIn right now. But I think the Instagram design community is, in the right circles, is incredibly powerful and incredibly close. But then you get like that next echelon out, where it's kind of design, but it's mostly Instagram related design. And you know all the guys that I'm talking about, as far as like, that's their whole thing, is like the Instagram design community, which is Instagram, right? And then there's like the designers that have made community on Instagram, which is a totally different like group of people. And so I think that part of the community is super powerful. But let's talk about LinkedIn, because I think that's we were talking about the other day, and then you posted something yesterday about LinkedIn, and I want to get your thoughts behind that, and what made you switch over. what was, I don't want to say switch over is like you went to a different job or something,
Threw
but
Instagram the garbage and I'm
yeah,
using LinkedIn now.
it's like I'm done with this Instagram. What was the like the motivating factor, and then what have you found as far as like engagement and like just being on LinkedIn as opposed to Instagram? What were the differences that you've realized?
So the reason I switched, or the reason I, fiddled, wet my feet in Instagram, and LinkedIn, I was always on LinkedIn. I wasn't using it obviously as much as Instagram, but I was always dabbling around in there. Like I would comment on stuff here and maybe like, I don't know, once a week, let's say, I would be on LinkedIn, right? And I said, you know what, I want to kind of see what LinkedIn is all about. The reason I went was, I think, the leads. I was looking for more leads essentially. The leads I was getting then they were decent, but I was like, you know what, maybe I can fiddle in LinkedIn and see if I can get different types of leads, right? Um, and I did. I went on LinkedIn, and I don't want to say I was like one of the first ones to go there and post carousels, because I doubt I was, but I'd say from our design community, I was probably one of the first ones, and I think that was super helpful in I guess my attention on there, because not a lot of people knew even how to make carousels on there. Even
Yeah.
Chris messaged me, he's like, "How do I make a carousel?" I'm like, I'm so confused. And there's nowhere to like, you couldn't. It was like one of those features where on the platforms they don't like tell you how to do it. It's just there, and you have to like find it somehow. So I stumbled on it, and I was like, oh, wait, I can post carousel on here without having to post like image blocks like Facebook, right? I was like, that's pretty cool. Let me try it out. So I kind of repurposed one of my posts. This was like, yeah, like 8, 9 months ago, something like that, around there. And I posted it, and it blew up. Like, I posted one, I got some engagement, and then I posted another one, and it just like blew up. I think it got like 200 or 300,000 views or something like that. Like it went crazy, and I think that's what kind of generated a lot of the attention. Um, it's just because LinkedIn has such an organic growth. Like right now, the reach is insane. You can post like 10 hashtags, and you're gonna probably trend. Like pretty high probability that you'll trend on those hashtags. So yeah, I mean, to answer your other question, what's the differences between the two? Like you said, there's a lot of similar faces. Some people are starting to, I'm noticing an influx of people on LinkedIn from Instagram. I can see like the faces and like the profile pictures. I'm like, yeah, this one looks familiar. So the people are kind of are starting to be the same, but prior to that, it's more, it feels a bit more professional. Like there's just something about it that feels like, if I get on a call with someone, or like they reach out, they want to call with me, I almost know it's going to be genuine and about, a little more serious, on the serious side, right? Whereas Instagram, it's like I have a bunch of calls, and it's a bit more friendly and a bit more less goal oriented, right? So when it comes from like a business standpoint, in terms of like leads and stuff, LinkedIn has been huge for me. Huge, definitely.
So I completely agree with you as far as like connecting with people and those connections being more focused on business. I think right away in LinkedIn, like I've connected with people in there, and the calls are like business, and it's like, hey, we want to talk about like what you talk about as far as like branding and stuff like that, as opposed to Instagram, which again, I love my Instagram design community. A lot of it a lot of it is for the design community itself. It's highly social. It's just like we're just hanging out and chatting about stuff. But if you're being sought out on Instagram, for me, I've noticed that the lead, they're not even leads, they're just people that are curious either in how to do what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
as far as like mentoring or making carousels or growing on Instagram. So it's really about like how to do what you're doing on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like LinkedIn, where it's like, how can we work together and benefit each other with our expertise, right? What's the Cam was asking kind of like how are you treating LinkedIn differently? Because I think you've stated that it does feel different. So how's your approach been different to LinkedIn?
Yeah. So LinkedIn has different types of profiles as Instagram. Um, a lot of people that are on LinkedIn, you don't use Instagram the way we do, if I'm excluding designers. So in that regard, I can vet someone out pretty thoroughly before I have to talk to them, right? So I can see, like, what their position is. I can see if they're working on something. I can see if they're not working on something. I could see, if they're a startup. Like, I have a lot of information that I don't have on Instagram. So if someone, contacts me or likes one of my posts, and if I go to their profile and like see like, oh, who is this guy? Like, I'm curious. And it's like John and I like cats. It's like, cool. But I don't know nothing about you, right? So I can't like reach out. I have nothing to grasp onto. Whereas if I go on LinkedIn and John is like, I like cats, but I also work at, a startup, and I, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Well, now I have something that I'm genuinely curious about. And I'm like, yo, like, what are you up to? What's this about? Like, I'd love to learn more. So see, like, that for me, I think that's a huge factor, is that I can actually vet people out and like learn about them without having to ask them, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the huge part of the power of LinkedIn, because it's a professional networking tool in the beginning, right? And so to be on there, you have to like talk about your profession. You have to have a position, even if you're, solopreneur or whatever. You have to talk about like the whole purpose for you being there is to create leads for yourself and to connect with other people in a professional manner. That's not the original reason for Instagram. So I think some of the value of like just kind of peeling back the layer of social media, we can talk about TikTok too,
Mm-hmm.
is like, why was it created? And is that still relevant? Right? Like, what was the original creation reason? And is that still relevant today? Are they still operating under that business model? Right? Like, Facebook has changed as far as like when it was very early stages, and now it's a totally different thing. But connecting people is the same kind of like focus, right? Where Instagram is like, it was just like an image sharing platform. Hey, let's look at crazy cat memes and whatever, right? And so a lot of that stuff, though the content has evolved in different areas of Instagram, the reason for Instagram being alive is still the same reason, just to have eyeballs there and just to spend time. Whereas LinkedIn, the whole reason for that is to connect people to do business together, right? So if you're thinking about what social platform should I be on, well, what's your reason for being on social media in the first place? Is it to have a following and to like have people eyeballs on you? Well, then you can build that on any platform. But is it more than that? Do you want to get business from this? What business do you want to do? Can you start getting into the nuances of like what platform you should be on? Gary Vee would say, be on every platform as much as possible all the time. But I don't have a team of 5,000 people like creating content for me or helping me create content or filming me 24/7, and that's not my whole reason for being. My reason for being is like, talking about branding and design and mindset, right? So um, can we talk a little bit about like the mindset of connecting on LinkedIn a little bit more? Like, you talked about like, hey, if I connect with somebody on LinkedIn, then I know that it's going to be a little bit more professional in business, and I can vet people a little bit better. Like, what have your leads been like on LinkedIn, and what was the correlation to like kind of posting there?
So a lot of my leads come from me also outreaching. So I'm outreaching as much as I'm receiving as well. And don't get me wrong, I get a lot of messages about design stuff too. Like, it's just like Instagram. I have a, I'm connected to a lot of designers as well on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. So there's definitely still that, that flow over from Instagram onto LinkedIn. And I think that's normal. Especially when you post stuff about LinkedIn, everyone kind of wants to,
Yeah.
connect with you and stuff, which is cool. But I think the approach or the mindset for me and that has been like really, really key, was I think it was Matthew and Cena that had one of these decks on one of our pro calls a long time
Okay.
ago. I think it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like a year ago or something like that. And it was about networking, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember the the idea behind it was, being it was like being genuine and be curious. Those like the two ones that I like really remember. And I stuck with that. I'm like, you know what? Like let me just be super curious and be super genuine. Like, what about this person am I curious about? Like, what about their business am I curious about? And let me just go ahead and ask. If it's something as simple as, someone asked me yesterday in the comments, and I responded with, you know, if you're a founder of I don't know, a tech company that creates, I don't know, bionic, I don't know, baby diapers or something. I don't know.
Bionic baby diapers would be
Bionic
amazing.
reusable baby diapers. Like, what's the life like for that kind of founder? Like, I'm genuinely curious. So I would just go and spark conversation. Like, no pitching at all. No, like, oh, like, I'm a brand designer, maybe I can help you. Like, no, I straight up just let me just see what you're like, what you're up to.
Yeah.
Curiosity. And those have led to, Zoom calls, and or even I've had a conversation with people, and like a month and a half later, they message me like, hey, I think I need your, or I think I might need you, or I have a question for you. Can I hop on a call? Like, sure, let's hop on a call. And that turns into a lead, and then turns to a warm lead and a hot lead, and then maybe
Yeah.
maybe a deal, or maybe a project. So yeah, I think that's the mindset. Like, just be genuine, be curious, and don't pitch. Don't worry about what you can offer them, because at the end of the day, you might not be able to offer them anything, and you might know someone that can offer
Yeah.
them something, and that's also super valuable too. Like, if I can refer someone like that I know to that person, that's massive. It's like you're making that connection, and it's cool. So yeah, I think that's the mindset that I approach it with.
I think we get to pre um, we get too predisposed to selling right away, right? So like we're on a
Mm,
platform, like, oh, I gotta show everybody what I can do, and tell them all the stuff that I can do. It's like, but that's not why they want to connect with you, right? They've already seen what you can do, so why not kind of talk about them a little bit, or be curious? And I remember that call
mm,
with Matt, and I wrote down like, be curious and genuine, and genuinely curious, right? It's like, you like, if the more curious you are about somebody's business, the more you're going to strike up a conversation. And I was talking to somebody about this a couple of days ago, and it's like, who actually, I was talking to Dot Long about this, yeah, 2 days ago. Um, like, who are you more apt to hire? Somebody you've had a conversation with, and that you kind of have built a little bit of a rapport with, that can get the job done, that their skill set isn't in question, right? Or someone from Instagram that has this beautiful feed that you don't have any connection to at all, or whatever it is, like Behance or whatever platform they're on, that you're just kind of seeing them. If you can connect with somebody, and you can connect their services or their um, proficiencies to a business that you need, then I'm more apt to hire you than I am, somebody I haven't met on Instagram, that may have visually, you know, a more specific portfolio to what I need, but I know that you can get the job done, and I've had a conversation with you. So my comfort level with you is here already. And that's where relationships are kind of going to start blossoming. And so LinkedIn is no different. Like, I, about a month ago, when all this whole COVID stuff happened, I sent out a post, and it was just like a one image carousel about like, about being genuinely helpful in this period, instead of like being genuinely salesy, and
mm,
kind of like that. And a guy that I met when I was in LA last year, or earlier this year, he owns he doesn't own, he's the kind of creative director, marketing director of this huge like company in Mexico. And we had connected right after we met each other in LA, and we had some good conversations in LA. And so I posted that, and he's like, I need to talk to you. It was like just like that. And I was like, okay, like, I wasn't thinking about like business. And so we get on a call and he brings in the CEO, which I had met in LA too. He's like, hey, this guy's going to join us too. I was like, all right, cool. And so he's like, I have some questions I have to ask you. I was like, all right, cool. It was just going to be like a pro bono, like, hey, call. This guy prepared a deck.
Oh,
Like
shit.
he was just like, he went and he's like, I got a deck. And I was like, oh, okay, let's
That
go,
kind of call.
And it was like 6 a.m. So I'm just like, I'm like kind of like waking up and stuff. And he's like, what do you think? And this and that. And I was like, ABC, kind of walked him through whatever I was thinking. And so like that took me by surprise, because it was like, I can't remember how many calls from people with Instagram. It's like, hey, can we jump on a call? Da, da, da. Super conversational, or it's about Instagram, for the most part. And so like this totally took me by surprise, because it was like hyper professional. Like, hey, I got a deck. Let's talk. We hit like, I think they booked like a half-hour call. We went for an hour, and he was like really apologized. Like, I'm so sorry. Da, da. I was like, no, I blocked out an hour. Don't worry about it. And so like the respect and professionalism was like through the roof. Totally different vibe than chatting it up with somebody on Instagram. And no disrespect to like any of my friends on Instagram, because I love to talk to all the guys. But it was a very different experience. And that was just after like one like random post that I had just done. Like, so I'm going to challenge myself. We talked about this and I hadn't done it yet, but I'm challenging myself. What day is this? It's the 21st. So like at the end of, I think in the beginning of next week, I'm going to challenge myself for like a 30-day LinkedIn sprint. And I'm not going to create anything new. I'm just going to comb through my content and look for anything relevant that I can post and repost and talk about, mindset, design, branding, whatever that is. And then post it on LinkedIn, and then I'm just going to see what happens. Because the whole point is, for me right now, the whole point is like, I need to like parlay any audience that I have into like real business opportunities. And so like that just kind of like gave me the inkling that, hey, all the stuff that I'm talking about is actually really important to deeper level. Like these guys are like C-suite level guys. I'm like, these are the guys I want to have conversations with, because literally after we talked, they were like execution mode. They had their whole team working on stuff that we were talking about. And I was like, oh dang, this is legit. This is real. And so I really loved like having that conversation where it was like execution based, right? They're looking for answers. They're looking for solutions right now for things that they need to execute on right now. And all the information I was giving them was like super valuable to them. So like, that's what I want to use. Or that's what I want to do. That's the kind of like conversations I want to have, where people are ready to move, and whatever I'm giving them is highly valuable to them. So keep an eye out for that. I'll tag you in my first couple ones, but
looking forward to it. Yeah, I think it's a culture, right? It's different.
Yeah, you don't really think about it, because you're wrapped up in like trying to get followers, but what are they following? Like, what's the point if you're not providing actionable value for them, right? So like, yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. Honestly, I'm just like, I'm gonna take a break from Instagram, and not really like take a break, just like take a break from like, because I'm like, I think I was posting a couple times a week. I think I'm posting like once a week now. I posted a couple times last week. I'm just like, not that I'm over it. I'm just like, why am I doing this kind of thing? And it goes back to the people for me. And it's like, I love hanging out with people. I've met a lot of people that I've helped on Instagram. So that's still why I do what I do. But can they get just as much help from everything that I've already posted, and like maybe once a week posting there, as opposed to me like killing myself daily as a full-time job for free, and we have a certain, rate that we work at, so like I'm starting to add up all these hours. I'm just like, wow, I'm paying myself, $400,000 a year to create free Instagram content. So anyway, that's what that's my challenge. I'm completely inspired by you as far as like our last conversation. I just haven't been able to, I've been doing other stuff, but definitely going to start next week. 30-day LinkedIn sprint, and we'll see what happens. I'm curious to, if I get one lead, it's like, then that's game over, right? it's like, all right, cool. That's, you know, that's all I needed was one focused lead.
One hot lead.
One hot lead. That's all you need, which is, I didn't mean to rhyme that, but, but anyway, let's see. Anything else that people are asking? I don't know. Okay. Anything you wanted to talk about other than that?
No, I mean, I'm good. I mean, I'm enjoying the conversation. Gonna keep. What's up to you? I mean, I have like, I'm free for like a little while. So I mean, if you have stuff to do, that's cool.
No, I'm good. Just I'm gonna have to probably jump off in about max 15 minutes because the kids are gonna start getting really loud.
Yeah. That's cool.
But let's talk about. Let's totally switch gears. Let's take the design and take stuff off table. Let's talk about you a little bit. So, where'd you go to? Did you go to school for design? Where'd you go to school? Give me a little bit of background, and then I want to talk about motorcycles and and accidents. I want to hit that because I don't know if you've ever really talked about that.
Yeah, I don't think many people know about that about me. But yeah, okay. So a little bit about my backstory, where to begin. I always had a knack for like art. I was always very expressive in like whatever I can do, whether it was like Photoshop. I remember the first time I ever used Photoshop, it was like Photoshop 7, I think it was called. And
Such a baby.
Yeah, my brother was using it for like a project, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And he's like, "It's Photoshop." I'm like, "Cool, like let me play with this." And I was just like hooked. So I did a lot of like surreal imaging when I was younger. That was like my niche, I guess you can say, and it was like a lot of like digital art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I became, funny enough, I became an electrician. I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't the best student in terms of academic wise.
Yeah.
So you know, the next best thing for me was trade school, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna become an electrician. You know, I'm good with my hands. I like bricking and stuff. Cool, let's do it. So I became an electrician. I graduated, and I did that for, surprisingly enough, for 3 or 4 years. I forget now, but I did that for 3 or 4 years. I went from electrician, then I became a service manager, like a really big company, and the pay was like really, really good. I was getting paid a ton, and then I would go home and I would do like design work and like look for like little clients, like to do logos and stuff. And I was like, this is fun. Like, even if I'm not getting paid much, like I'm enjoying it. And I'm like, why am I going to this job that like I don't really like, to be honest? And I was like, I go home every day looking to do like little design work for like small businesses just because it's fun. I'm like, why don't you go back to school? Like, screw this. I'm just gonna go back to school. So I quit my job like within a month, and I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, I'm like, sorry guys, like I gotta go. This is not for me. I signed up at a school. I got accepted. I went, and to be honest with you, the school was okay. It was a little lackluster in terms of like what I was learning. It was more of like comprehensive, hands-on kind of school, where we didn't talk much about like language and stuff like that. It was more or theory. It was very like hands-on, which is good. But in the other side, I wish it had kind of that theory aspect to it, where I could learn about, you know, like the vocabulary and stuff like that, and like how things make you feel, and you know, anyways. So it was okay. The school, it wasn't the best. And then when I graduated that, I took a 7-month hiatus, and I went to Asia, and I just lived there for like 7 months. I just traveled all over Asia, and then when I came back, I looked for a job. I got a job in an agency that focused in visual identity, and that was fun for about 3 years. And then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go on my own. So no, sorry, I got another job in an agency. I worked there for about 2 years, and then I decided to go back on my own. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take off now and see what happens. I built myself a nice runway which a lot of people should do if they're going to go freelancing. Build yourself a runway. Don't
Yes.
don't build yourself like a 1 month runway. Build yourself like 6-7 months of runway, because you're going to fail, and you need
Yeah.
to have that backup so you can survive and make your dream come true. I mean, it's not something that you can just hop off and be like, all right, I'm going to become a freelancer now. Like, it's hard work and you got to grind. So have that fallback, I think, is super valuable. I'm happy I did that, because if I didn't, I would have been right back at the agency within 3 months. So yeah. And yeah, that's kind of the backstory, I guess you can say, for my design experience.
So like at these, so you, I'm going to just talk about your school for a little bit. So you went to kind of like a design trade school, basically, just like how to do design kind of thing. And they're very specific on like using programs and like teaching the specifics and basics.
Yeah, I
Is that
mean,
kind of how it was?
yeah, in a sense, like there was a lot of like we did a lot of in-depth stuff, but it wasn't. It was lackluster, man. Like straight up, it felt lackluster.
Mm,
There was some modules where I was kind of like teaching the teachers some stuff. Like that's how lackluster it was. And I was self-taught in a lot of the Adobe stuff. Like I was doing it for like 6-7 years on my own.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in that regard, like I knew how to use a lot of stuff. So yeah, it wasn't the best. I learned more on my own than I did at the school for sure. However, there was like two really, really, really good professors there that I kind of latched onto, and I just like I sucked out all the knowledge I could out of them. So I would like go see them like after school and like try and learn more, because they were like,
Yeah.
one was like a type whiz and the other one was like an illustrator. And I just like latched on there. And then actually that's where I fell in love with identity design, is through one of those professors. And I was like, you know what, like let me dabble my feet more into this and see what it takes me. And yeah, I opened up those doors, and then it led to branding and all that stuff. And I learned more and more and more and more. And then I started working at the agency, and yeah.
So with your little hiatus in Asia, like were you, like I talked to a lot of people that do that. They'll like go to school and they'll like take a break.
Mm-hmm.
They'll like just take off for a little bit. What how was that instrumental in or influential in your work after that, or was it at all? Or was it just purely like just vacation?
I don't know, man. Like a lot of people, I'm gonna go into Asia. I'm gonna take a big trip to go find myself and all that stuff. And I think for me, the idea was to do that, and like I think it's everyone's almost purpose to do that. But then once you get there, it's kind of just like one massive party for like 6 months. I mean, you're just like with a bunch of other people your age at like hostels and stuff, and you're just like drinking every night. And I mean, you're learning about other people's cultures and stuff. I think it's more of a learning. You learn more about other people than you do. No, let's take it back. You definitely learn a lot about yourself, and there's a lot of stuff that is put into perspective for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess it definitely changed me in some way. Did it make me like a better designer or something? I don't think so. I mean, I think it's kind of all the same. I didn't really think about work when I was there at all. I
Yeah.
can tell you that much. I mean, it was just like, where am I going today? And like, okay, we're gonna go to this city and then that city, and bought a motorcycle, and yeah, it was wild.
Okay. So that's good. So you mentioned motorcycle. So
Mm,
we had a conversation a long time ago, and you
mm.
told me you had an accident. So what happened, or what's your kind of journey been with motorcycles? You used to race, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. Like what led you to racing motorcycles, and like what happened when it changed?
Well, I always had I was also a bit of an adrenaline junkie to some extent. I was a cautious adrenaline junkie, but I was an adrenaline junkie. Um, I bought a motorcycle when I was 22, I think, or 21, and it was a sports motorcycle. Um, and I had it for like 6 years, 7 years on the road. And those motorcycles are not made for the road, right? Like they are just not made for the road. You can't even ride them the way they're supposed to be ridden on the road for many reasons. I mean, one, traffic; two, you can't turn on them the way they're supposed to be turned on and stuff like that. I mean, the roads just, especially in Montreal, they're just horrible, and it just doesn't work out. So I decided, you know what, let me actually go drive this thing the way it's supposed to be driven. So I started going to like tracks and doing like lessons and stuff like that. And I just fell in love. Like I was like, this is it. Like this is, if the graphic design doesn't work, like
I'm in.
I'm gonna do something in this niche or something. I don't know. So in this industry, sorry. And I fell in love with it. I did it for about 2 years, and then on the tail end of the second year, I was just doing a free practice, not a free practice, but like an open practice at a track. And I unfortunately had an accident. Someone kind of clipped me, uh, and like we got stuck together for a little bit, and then we finally detached. He tried overtaking me in a very aggressive way. It didn't work out. And when we finally detached, I was going straight into a wall, and I went to brake. And what happened was when he kind of detached from me, he ripped my brake lever off.
Oh, geez.
So when I went to brake, I was like, it's not there anymore. And I'm going about at this point around 70 kilometers an hour, which is I think like 40 miles an hour or something like that, right? Not sure, but yeah. And then I kind of said, okay, well, I have an option here. Either I hit the wall and like go my head straight on, or I just jump off and see what happens. So I kind of just jumped off the bike, and the bike kind of like fell next to me. And luckily I did, because if not, I was pretty much toast. I hit my heels first into the wall, and the impact kind of like smashed up into my spine and like broke my vertebrae. And
God.
yeah, that was rough. Sad. Like bike got totaled. I was totaled. I was in the hospital for a little bit, and then I couldn't walk for like 2 months, 2.5 months about.
Oh man.
Yeah. So yeah.
How long ago was this?
I want to say now it's about, I think almost 2 years. Shit, that's fast. Yeah, almost 2
Wow.
years. Yeah.
Okay, so like when I met you, it was only like a year after that.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. I was still recovering after that. Like it took me a good year and a half, or a good year and a bit, to kind of like be full force again. Like, you know, back to powerlifting, like we mentioned already in the past, and stuff like that. Yeah. And even now, I mean, when I squat and go to the gym, like it's not, you know, there's something that's not 100% to me, but yeah, it's the little things in your back that you feel like, oh, I don't know about that one. You know, maybe I'll take 5 pounds off today.
That's probably not supposed to be there right there. So
yeah, that's it. So yeah,
that's what happens when you smash your spine from the bottom up. Holy smokes, man.
From the bottom up, man.
That
Crazy.
sounds terrible. Oh man.
I know, right? It was wild. Like I didn't even know that was possible until it happened to me.
I guess that's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like jumping straight off a building. Like you're you're like doing this. I mean, you're flying at the wall that way, but
yeah.
That just oh man, that sounds awful.
Shattered my heels and all that stuff.
So what's been the biggest like side effect of your accident?
Oh man. I mean, during the recovery, depression, straight up.
Like, really?
Oh yeah. I mean, being unable, I mean, it hurts to sleep. It just hurts no matter what you did. It was pain at all times of the day. I mean, that sucked. And then you're on like drugs, right, to deal with the pain, and that's not helpful for your mental at all. So I mean, unable to move, unable to do anything, it takes a toll on your mental, at least for myself. So yeah, it definitely was. I found myself in moments of like depression for sure. Luckily, I was able to, you know, bounce back after, and once I was able to start walking again and do minor workouts, that was super helpful for me. I mean, for me, working out is like a pivotal like point in my life. Not a pivotal point, but it's so important to me for my mental and like overall like health. It's just without working out, I crumble, so to speak. So that I think was a huge factor. Me not being able to work out, not be able to move was just massive on my mental, and it just took a toll. And again, those drugs are just no good, man. Like there was points I remember.
They do such a crazy loop on your brain.
Yeah, man. And I was on like the strongest stuff, like stronger than morphine. It was called like
Oh, jeez.
Dilaudid or something like that. Yeah. They give it to you when you're in like serious pain. So I was on those things. And I remember at one point, I remember like I woke up and I'm like, oh, I'm not that much in pain today. Like it's a good day. And I'm like, but let me just take one anyway. Like, you know,
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, shit, this shit, that's how this works. I see. So yeah, I remember
That's
throwing
how
that bottle
this
out
works.
as soon as
Yeah.
like I could withstand the pain. I was like, yeah, I'm done with this.
That's dangerous, man. Like, yeah, that's all like opioid, like
Mhm.
pain relief, and that's
Yeah,
highly addictive.
yeah, yeah.
Man, I can't even imagine. Like, I've had like minor mishaps as far as like lifting and like messing up my back and stuff like
Mm.
that, but like crushing your spine from your heels, I can't even imagine the kind of pain you were in. Like,
Yeah. The doctor said I had when he showed me the X-ray, he's like, looked at me, he looked at me and said, you understand how lucky you are? I said, I mean, yeah, I get it. He's like, do you understand? He pulled out like a ruler and he's like, do you see this? And he showed me like this small little sliver of a ruler. He's like, this is how close you were from being paralyzed to your neck down. And I was like, fuck.
jeez.
Yeah. And my girlfriend was in the room and she was just like, motherfucker, like, I'm gonna kill this guy. I'm gonna kill him.
Once you're better, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, once you're better, I'm gonna kill you. Like, yeah. Thank God for her, man. She like took care of me. And yeah, she was like, yeah, awesome.
Man, that's intense. So like, as far as today, so around 2 years later, right?
Mm.
Like, what what things do you now still kind of remnants of the crash? Like, as far as like, do you still have physical, like, we've talked about like kind of tweaking pain stuff, like when you're lifting and stuff like that, but like, what is like, is there like a daily like annoyance?
Mm.
Like, do you
No,
feel do you feel it?
it depends. Like sporadically, like maybe twice a month or something. Like now I'll sit down for a little bit and I'm like, a little stiff here. You know, I could
Yeah.
maybe use some stretching, stuff like that. I did a lot of physio. Like I did everything you can think of just to make myself better.
Yeah.
I did a lot of stuff, but yeah, I think for me the best thing is working out straight up. It's weird. Like if I work out, I feel better. And now
Yeah.
this is like destroying me, this whole COVID thing, because I could work out at home, right? But it's just not the same, man.
Not
Like
the same.
it's just not the same.
It's different when you're used to like lifting like heavy stuff, right? And it's like,
Exactly.
I can't do this anymore, and it goes completely in the like to reverse, because you're like, it's playing mental games with you, right? You can't physically exert yourself as you need to because you've accustomed yourself to like certain amount of physical exertion,
Hmm.
and then like, the benefit of working out isn't there either. So you're just like, you start to like, I don't want to do it because I'm not going to get the same like endorphin rush that I usually do. Right. So it's like a self-defeating cycle. It's really bad, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough. But I'm gonna probably have to invest in some sort of squat rack or something, but I can't find them. Like you can't find them right now. I don't know
no,
if you can get
everything's
them.
like sold out. Even
Gone.
my friend he started a business out here in Hawaii, a couple of years ago, where he was like importing squat racks, and like they had everything, like they were manufacturing like weights and stuff like that for like the same Chinese manufacturer that would produce like Rogue and like these higher end like squat racks and stuff. And because of COVID, China shut down, so they couldn't get anything in. And now that China's back up, they're still like 3 months behind, and they sold out of everything here.
Yeah.
Like all these gyms are like shutting down like crazy, and so like you can't even find dumbbells on
Nope.
Hawaii in Hawaii.
Nope.
Like you can't, like, even on I've gone to like a couple different manufacturer sites, like they're sold out on everywhere, which is crazy to me. So yeah, yeah, it's like if you didn't have it before this, like it's not like you can get it like really quickly. So, but there's things you can do. It's just that when you're used to lifting like hundreds of pounds, it's like hard to find hundreds of pounds around your apartment unless you're like, deadlifting your girlfriend or something.
I was benching my girlfriend yesterday. I was like, let me try and bench from like the floor. I don't even have anything. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, it was just horrible. I was like, this is just shit, man. I'm gonna not do this. Like,
This is dumb.
yeah, this is dumb. Like, she's like, it's so fun. I'm like, no, it's just
This
this is great. This is silly.
Oh man.
Yeah, man.
All right, man. Well, dude, this has been so fun.
Yeah, let's
just
do it
hanging
again.
out. Let's
But
do it again. Yeah.
this time I'm gonna get myself a thing for my phone where I can actually set it up
Right
properly.
on, yeah.
I'm gonna like buy it actually right now, just so I have it. And whenever you're ready, like we'll do another one.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Anytime.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, we'll set something up even for like next week or whatever. I don't
Sure.
care. Not
Yeah.
like I'm not doing that kind of stuff.
Sounds good, man.
All right, man. I'm gonna sign off of YouTube, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us on YouTube. Appreciate you guys, and we are signing off.